Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Bastyr University's Bachelor of Science in Herbal Sciences webinar. My name is Mary Malavitsis, and I'm the lead undergraduate admissions advisor at Bastyr's Kenmore campus. I am joined by the chair of the Botanical Medicine Department, Dr. Sheila Kingsbury. Before I turn it over to Sheila, I'd like to outline the agenda for today. First, Sheila will walk you through the program and its features, and then I will come back on and talk about the application and admissions process. Finally, we do expect that you'll have questions as we go through today's webinar. Please feel free at any time to submit your questions in the question box you see on the right side of your screen, and we will answer as many as we can at the end of the presentation. If we don't get to yours today, we will contact you individually to make sure your questions get answered. We will also email our contact information and a link to the recorded webinar, so there is no need to take notes throughout the presentation. With that being said, I am now going to hand it over to Sheila.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go through the curriculum for the program. And like Mary said, if you have any questions, just go ahead and send them our way. And now or later, we will get back to them. And for those that are listening to a recording, feel free to contact us anytime. You can also email me directly. So I'm going to go through this curriculum and just getting my slides to move. So throughout the slides here, you'll see a few pictures of plants. We've, for the most part, chosen to have some pictures of our Northwest natives. So if you're not from here, we definitely utilize the fact that we are located in a state park, and we have a lot of Pacific Northwest natives. We also have a dedicated ethnobotany trail for the Pacific Northwest as part of the Sacred Seeds International Program, which is a subset of the United Plant Savers Program. So we do get the opportunity to focus on the native medicinal plants as well as the larger picture of medicinal plants throughout history. This one is Devil's Club. This is one of the Pacific Northwest ginseng relatives, and used slightly different than some of the other ginsengs, but a similar properties in terms of stabilizing the immune system and nervous system, as well as some wound healing properties. So that's one of the plants you would learn in the program. So our program starts in the fall of what would be your junior year. So the first year here at Bastyr in the traditional layout would start with the junior year fall quarter, and we start off with the introduction to herbal sciences, which kind of gets everybody on the same page because a lot of people come from different backgrounds. And so we go over some basics of plant morphology, conservation, and some terminology in regards to medicinal plant medicine, so that everybody kind of has those foundational pieces. It also has several field trips to local farms, apothecaries, and different plant growers in their areas, just so you can kind of start to get to see people in action at different locations. And then you have your first botany class. So we have botany 1 and 2, and that gives you a little bit of a different view of botany in terms of you've entered in with kind of an introduction, and this will get you kind of a deeper level of botany, coinciding with some of your taxonomy and morphology of plants, again, so that you have the basis of language in terms of how we talk about plants, in terms of how they look, their parts, as well as how they're used. And you'll have your sciences throughout this year in terms of organic chemistry, anatomy and physiology, and that gives the foundation for the second year. So the chemistry and anatomy and physiology all lay the groundwork for understanding things like the chemistry of plants, the metabolites of plants, how the plants interact with the body in a physiological sense, so that we can understand the medicine of them a little bit better. The interdisciplinary studies course has been discontinued, and we have room for electives more in this quarter. So we advise, especially if you want to hit the ground running, to meet with your advisor about electives, your faculty advisor, to guide you, because the electives have, there's a fair amount that are required in the program, and the goal of the electives is we recognize that people come in with different um, uh, desires for the end means in terms of some people want to be growers, some people want to be clinical herbalists, some people want to go into graduate work, some people want to go into the herbal industry work. And so the electives can help you kind of discover where you want to go or focus on those areas. We do require that 4 of those elective credits be in the field, and we have identified through so your faculty advisor or your registrar advisor can show you which classes count. There's a lot of different options, but we do want you to plan ahead so that you're not kind of scrambling to get some of those field electives. So you have some options in this first quarter. It's a good place to dabble and take things that you might be interested in. And then, of course, we can advise you for planning through the next couple of years. You also have plant identification and horticulture 1. So this plant identification and horticulture class runs each quarter for both years. So you have 6 quarters basically of plant identification, and we try to line those up with what you're learning in other areas. For example, what you're learning in morphology and taxonomy in your introduction will also then be reflected in your plant identification. And then horticulture is learning how to grow the plants, and that will be everything from focusing on soil health, how to prep, as well as various different steps along the way, including greenhouse or indoor growing, things like that. So those 2 kind of focus on the growing aspects so that no matter which direction you end up going after graduation, you have an appreciation for appropriate plant identification and appropriate growing of the plants. Here's a picture of our students on one of the field trips for the introduction to herbal sciences. They went to a medicine manufacturing place, and what they're doing is called garbling. It's a very technical term, but it's very specifically means processing of the dried plant material. So sorting out leaves, removing stems, or whatever the particular plant requires, and that's what they're doing here. In the winter quarter, you have your history and traditions class. This is with me. This is one of my favorite classes. It covers the history of herbal medicine, which kind of ends up being the history of medicine in general, but it also covers different traditions. So we try to give the appropriate history training that you need in terms of herbal medicine throughout the last, it mainly focuses on the last couple thousand years, but kind of goes back a little further too, depending on what traditions we're focusing on. It gives you a little taste of traditions that aren't in what we call the Western herbal medicine tradition, so East Asian traditions, Middle East traditions. It gives you a chance to explore a lot of different types of herbal medicine and how it's practiced throughout the world. So kind of a global focus on that as well as historical. You start your research series this quarter. This is the first of about 4 classes, I think, and research methods for herbal science. So this differs from other research methods class in the sense that it's focused on plant research. So looking a little bit more focused on plant research and how it's been done, what's currently happening, and how to interpret research studies with plant medicine in mind. And that preps you for your subsequent classes as well. You continue on in your chemistry and anatomy and physiology, as well as your plant ID and horticulture and your second botany class. The second botany class goes in a specific different direction in terms of botany so that it focuses on secondary metabolites, which is unique to kind of our discussion of plants and particularly medicinal plants. It's often the secondary metabolites of the plant that tend to have medicinal action. So that kind of helps round out your understanding of that. And then in the third quarter, we have herbal preparations, which is your medicine making class. So we learn all the different types of herbal medicine preparations that you would use either in a clinical herbalist setting or in the industry or in an apothecary setting. And then ethnobotany and Northwest herbs. So ethnobotany introduces you to the basics of ethnobotany, some of the more kind of academic side of ethnobotanical research, as well as a more intimate look at the specific medicinal Pacific Northwest plants, as well as ethnobotanical plants, meaning things that you would use for basket making or for shelter or for tools. And we have an ethnobotanist from the Northwest that teaches that. And then you continue on with your plant ID and your chemistry, and you finish up your anatomy and physiology. This is the Western red cedar, very, very powerful plant for the Pacific Northwest. It was used for shelter and clothing and tools and baskets, as well as for medicine. So it has a deep connection to the people of the Pacific Northwest. So we'll be learning about that one. And then in the second year, you pick up in your with a more intensity, your materia medica. So the herbal materia medica has 3 quarters, and although you will have learned some in the first year, then in the second year you're completely focused on the plants. We teach the plants by families, botanical families, and so we go through the list of medicinal plants approved by the American Herbalist Guild, as well as some things that we have added, and also highlighting a few here and there from our Pacific Northwest. And the materia medica will have 2 parts. It has the lecture component, which is the, in and outs of each plant and details, and that's in the lecture classroom, and then a lab where each week you work on how to work with those plants. So you learn specifics about formulating and about specific extraction methods for different types of plant material. And at the same time, you'll be taking, as you'll see later in this list, the pharmacognosy class, which is a study of plant components. So again, those secondary metabolites from plants, but plant constituents or components that have a specific physiological action. So while you're learning that, you're also learning how we specifically extract some of those things in the materia medica lab. So for example, if you have a plant that is high in resins, and resins are what we want to use, those are generally extracted in either high alcohol or oil. And so we learn how to focus on that in lab and make an appropriate preparation for that plant, as well as how to formulate with it. And then the first aid for herbalists is obviously focused a little bit on general first aid, how to kind of build an herbal first aid kit, how to work appropriately in a first aid setting as a clinical herbalist, and it addresses a little bit of our scope for herbalists. And then test methods is the second of the research series, and test methods will cover things like HPLC, thin layer chromatography, gas chromatography, organoleptics, and microbiology. So it covers a lot of the different test methods used both in industry and in just general clinical herbalist settings. So it coincides with your kind of plant ID focus, in the sense that we use organoleptics, which is using your senses to make sure you have the right plant. So you're not just looking at the plant identification component, but you're also looking at the is it the right smell? Does it look right? Is it the right color? All those things. And so those are useful when you're working in the herbal industry, because that's one of the methods they use for testing and authenticating plant material. But it's also something we use on an everyday basis if you're ordering herbs for a clinic, or if you're just making medicines on your own, or if you're growing them. So it's something we use all the time. And then pharmacognosy we talked about, and disease processes. Disease processes is a class that helps kind of narrow in on particular different pathologies that we might be seeing either in a clinical herbalist setting, or if you're in the industry, you'd be formulating formulas for addressing different disease processes. So that helps get around that out. And then not listed here is the plant ID and horticulture series, which just continues throughout the second year as well. This is in the lab. So in the lab, we do lots of medicine making, of course, lots of preparations, and lots of research as well. And every now and then we have a nice fun spa day is what you see happening here. Winter quarter, we continue on with materia medica. Again, botanical family focused, very similar to the first one, and that will be 3 quarters long. What also happens in materia medica is you gain additional skills on writing about plants. So we start off in the first quarter with writing about phytochemistry of plants, learning how to write a monograph about a plant. We further develop that in the second quarter to look at ethnobotanical background, historical use, as well as deeper understanding of indications. And then when we get to the third quarter, you'll be focusing on writing for publication, as well as learning a few more plants. The pharmacology and herb-drug interaction class combines the understanding basics of pharmacology with how the herbs and drugs interact. And then herbs and food is a kind of a basic nutrition course combining with foods and using herbs with them. So it's kind of a gray area between herbs and food sometimes, and we're learning how to kind of step away from the traditional preparations and see how you can use herbs with cooking and just basic dietary and lifestyle focus, just to make it a little easier to help people find ways to get herbs in. So everything from stir fries to yogurts to berries to anything, basically. There's a lot of culinary focus here. We continue on with our plant ID and horticulture, and then our third in the research series is the quality assessment, quality control. And so that is focused on specifically on assessing the quality of the plant as it comes in, as well as assessing the quality of the plant preparations that you make. And this is where it started with the research class, but you get closer to your own research project. And so at this point, you would have kind of zoning in on what you want to research and how you're going to use the test methods you learned in the previous quarter, as well as your quality assessment, quality control test methods, and then have more lab time in order to kind of finish your introductory setup for your research project. And then in the spring quarter, what happens in the spring quarter is we have a 4-week break. So the first 4 weeks of class, you don't have class. You are encouraged to use that for your herbal science practicum. So it gives you the freedom to go wherever your heart desires. You work with a practicum coordinator to find a practicum near or far and figure out how logistics of getting there. You have to complete a total of about 80 hours in the practicum. So you can do that intensively by spending 4 weeks somewhere, or you can do that split, meaning you could do 40 hours in one type of practicum and 40 hours in another. So there's a lot of flexibility there. You're not required to do it only in this time frame, but that is, of course, created so that you have the freedom to travel. And so what some people have done is they have gone to ethnobotanical sites in South America, or they've gone to the nearby islands here. We have a community-supported agriculture herbal farm. Some people have worked with, so a lot of people have worked with different clinicians, whether they're naturopathic or regular physicians or clinical herbalists, and anywhere in the country. So people have gone all over the place for that. Some people have worked with growers, or medicine makers, or in research. So there's a lot of options here. We, of course, help you kind of figure out what will work best for you, and figure out how to kind of make that happen. But the idea is that that 4 weeks gives you more freedom to travel instead of trying to just fit your practicum in around classes here. So you get that 4 weeks. If you combine that with spring break, you technically have 6 weeks you could potentially do that in. So it gives you a lot of time frame to do that within. And then we have the business and law for herbal sciences, which teaches both kind of again, focusing on the scope of herbalists and legalities for clinical herbalist practice, as well as legalities for the industry. If you were going to become a product maker, you would want to have kind of a solid understanding of the legalities there, as well as kind of how to start and run a business. So it's a short but very important class. This is our Oregon grapefruit, Mahonia. One of them, we have a couple different species here, and this is a source of berberine, so it's a similar constituent makeup to golden seal, and can be used as an alternative in many cases. Although it's called Oregon grapefruit, you can actually use the bark from the branches, so it can be harvested sustainably, and it is a native here, so we have lots of it. And then where this program really shines is its electives. We have a lot of electives to choose from, and a lot of field electives, so you can kind of have hands-on activities near and far. So just a beginning list, we have food and medicinal mushrooms. So being a wet climate, we do have a good mushroom population here, and a lot of good resources in terms of finding mushrooms, identifying mushrooms, and learning how to work with them medicinally. We also have mycology, which is kind of the other side of fungi, in the sense of using mycology to restore the ecosystem and to prepare soil for better growth of edible or medicinal plants. And mycology is one of those classes that is in our Holistic Landscape Design certificate program, which is not only a source of other electives you could take, but also you could take the certificate program alongside the Herbal Sciences program. And that would be advisable for someone who wanted to be a medicinal plant grower, or who wanted to also gain their permaculture certificate. Our Holistic Landscape Design program has a unique niche to offer in that it focuses on edible and medicinal plants. So it's a nice supportive certificate to go along with this program if you're interested in growing plants or in kind of the landscaper side of things. So we'll have a few electives from that program. We have aromatic medicine, which is essential oils and the use of them in medicine. And we have flower essences, which is a little bit more of an energetic medicine using particular floral parts of plants. We have herbs and Ayurvedic medicine to give you an introductory to a deeper introductory into that system. We also talk about it in the history and traditions class, but if you want to have a whole class on it, it'll go over the herbs typically used in Ayurveda. We have a plants and ceremony class, which is offered in the summer, and that's again a ceremonial use of plants, and that is taught by a Native American who's also a naturopathic physician and an herbalist. We have organic gardening. So organic gardening is a very popular class. We offer several sections in the spring and summer, and that can be for anybody who has an interest in just having a better understanding of good gardening. We have clinical formulations, applications. We actually have 2 classes in that now, and that gets you more clinical focus on formulating. If you're going into with the goal of clinical herbalist, you want to gain hours towards your registered herbalist status through the American Herbalist Guild. This is one way to gain some of those hours. And then we have seed saving and soil ecology. Those are, again, are some electives that come out of our certificate in holistic landscape design. And Caitlin Gilson is our director for that program. If you want to dabble with the electives or you want to get your permaculture certificate, she is the person to talk to kind of strategize when and how to do that within your time here. Our field electives, we have many. This is from our Oregon class. We have herbal medicine throughout Oregon class that goes up and down Oregon and visits many farms and herbal medicine producers, as well as some wildcrafters. We go to Italy and look at herbal medicine there. We go to Appalachia. These courses are not necessarily offered every year, so we mostly will do kind of an every other year layout. So there are ways to plan to go if you have a particular interest in one. We go to New England in Maine. We go to the Cascades here. We go to Costa Rica in December. We go to the Southwest during spring break, the Oregon class I mentioned. And then there's also another local kind of mountain to sea medicinal field botany class. And again, you want to make sure you've talked with your advisors just to strategize where to fit these in, because again, they're not necessarily offered every single year. So you want to make sure that you're planning your electives accordingly. And we can advise how to fit those into your schedule. This is a picture from our herbal medicine in Italy class at the Abaca Farms. This is another picture from Oregon. This is Usnea, or old man's beard, another native. It's a lichen from the Pacific Northwest that is particularly useful, antimicrobial, used for lung health. Another thing that makes us stand out is our facilities. We have a very large herb garden that has several different ways of displaying plants so that you can learn. So we have a botanical family aspect of the garden, so plants planted by their botanical families. We have plants planted by the organ systems that they're used in primarily. We have plants that are what we call plants that are endangered, so there are sanctuary plants. We have our shade garden. We have an East Asian plant garden. We have water pond plant gardens and bog plants. We have the ethnobotanical trail that focuses on the Pacific Northwest. And then we also have plots that are used by the Herbal Sciences program for students to work every quarter with learning how to grow plants. For production. They also work a little bit in our teaching greenhouse, and then they also will learn to work on indoor plants too. We also have a nutrition bed, which is managed by our work study staff and our garden managers, but is used in the nutrition kitchen for the nutrition department, as well as used in the cafeteria sometimes. We have an herb lab that you spend a lot of time in for all the different plant medicine making and research. We have an analytical lab, which is right across from that. That is where you'll spend most of your time in your test methods research. We are surrounded by a state park that provides us with a very large background of native plants to kind of be amongst and learn from. We have a state-of-the-art library that is pretty much second only to the Lloyd Library in Cincinnati in terms of botanical focused library resources. That's one of their main collections. And the University of Washington facilities is also open to us, so that means their entire herbarium, which is one of the biggest ones in the country, as well as their library. This is our garden, which continually gets better and better. We have grown in a couple areas. One is we now have production beds, which are beds that are raised beds designed for production as needed. So the gardeners work with the lab manager to make sure that we have plant material that are going to be used in classes. And so we kind of plan a year in advance to make sure that we're growing what we need. And about 25% of our plants come from our garden directly to our lab use. And then we also have the addition of a very large teaching greenhouse with all the bells and whistles that's utilized mainly by the Herbal Science program and the Holistic Landscape Design program, as well as a little bit for specific research. This is one of our ponds. This is the lab on a brand new day when it was first opened, all nice and sparkly clean. And this is our lab in use when it's very busy with students doing different things. What each materia medica lab will have is an aspect of tasting each plant in different ways, as well as learning to work with each plant in medicine making. This is our analytical lab. And then our faculty and staff, we have several very great faculty. This is me. I am the chair, and I also teach some of the core classes. And I have been here for quite a while now. I teach your history class as well as materia medica and the Appalachian and New England herbal field classes. This is Dr. Eric Yarnell, and he has been with us for a while as well. He teaches the pharmacognosy class, your urban drug class, the urban drug portion of your pharmacology and herb drug class, and then the herbal medicine in Southwest. He also guest lectures throughout the Materia Medica series. Dr. Daisy, who's been an herbalist since she was a child, and she grew up in the area, Pacific Northwest native, and she was a graduate of our first year of the Herbal Science program and then also completed the naturopathic program. And she teaches a lot of the classes in the Herbal Science program. She teaches your introduction, your materia medica, as well as many of the electives we talked about. Dr. Caleb Lund is our pharmacognosist. He's a pharmacognosist toxicologist, PhD that came to us through research and then later became a faculty. He trained as a clinical herbalist here and with Michael Moore, and he teaches your entire research series as well as some of the labs. Caitlin Gilson is the director of the Holistic Landscape Design Certificate Program, and she also teaches your your horticulture classes. And so she's with you every quarter as well. And then Chrissy Atkins is our program coordinator. So this is your person that answers a lot of questions. She keeps us in line and schedules all of our classes and kind of helps us work with any kind of planning issues or coordination of all of our field classes, which is a lot. So we're really happy to have her help us. She's been here for quite a while as well and is very familiar with pretty much all the classes. This is one of our class groups out in our state park area. This is fireweed, another Pacific Northwest native that is blooming right now. And it's one of the plants that is unusual in the sense that what we use is the seed fluff for medicine. It's used in urinary tract health. And this is our Herbal Ways Club. So our Herbal Ways Club has been a long-standing tradition here at Bastyr. It allows for people to utilize the facilities with some supervised help in terms of if you've never made anything herbal medicine before and you want some guidance, it allows for people from other programs to kind of dabble. We provide some support through a small amount of herbal supplies, equipment supplies, and there's a very small fee per quarter to kind of be a part of that, or you could pay if you're only going to come one day or something like that, you can just use the equipment. There's lots of options there and lots of support. So people can get a little bit more out of their medicine making skills, and we've had some people use it to perfect some of those skills, or people from other programs just wanting to also be a part of it. So what do people do with the herbal science degree? They have many different directions they can go. They can obviously go into the medical profession in a variety of ways. We do have enough of the standards of the science classes and the kind of foundational pieces that you could go on into the naturopathic program, you can go on into acupuncture, oriental medicine, you can go on into a clinical herbalist, you can go into massage, you can go into conventional medical fields of various kinds. Those are all options that have all been done by someone from the program before. And then another portion of students will go on into the herbal industry. There's a lot more options there, and there's a lot of growth there because of the recognized need for trained professionals. And Bastyr is the only program that trains for the industry, so because we have the facilities to train in terms of those research and development and test methods. By having that equipment, we can train people specifically for those types of jobs, and the industry has recognized that and is definitely hiring our students in this area. And it can be anything from QA, QC to consulting with the industry to growing for the industry to research and development. Pretty much every aspect of working in the herbal industry in small companies and large. We have students who work for 2 of the top major herbal suppliers in the country right now, as well as many along the smaller companies. Some do part-time work in helping companies get kind of lined up with their good manufacturing practices and following the FDA laws. We have all that training to help people be consultants for that process. Some students go in more graduate school direction and research. We have students who have entered the University of Mississippi in pharmacognosy, which is the premier pharmacognosy PhD program. We have several students who have gone through ethnobotanical programs, University of Hawaii, and particularly we have 2 right now and another that went through before at the University of Kent in the United Kingdom, which is another prestigious ethnobotany program, and then several different environmental studies programs throughout the country. There's other options as well in the graduate school and research area. And then many that grow herbs, either small or large, work for different large growers or have their own small local growing operation, or gardening and horticulture focused. At least 80% of our graduates are employed in a botanical medicine related field. I think that's growing in the sense that everybody is somewhat connected to different companies or to their own operations or to clinical herbalist professions. And so most people are connected to the field in some way. And this is sassafras. This is not a Pacific Northwest plant. This just happens to be my favorite plant, so I thought I'd share it with you. This is from our garden. It is a southeast plant that is one of the main herbs that you'd find in root beer. It is the plant that gives root beer flavor and was a plant used for general spring detox, that sort of thing, kind of improving your metabolism and your metabolic organ function every spring. And it's a plant, it was the first plant I learned from my father, so I'm just sharing that with you. And I think Mary will take over.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Yeah, so now I will be talking about the admissions process. And next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So our undergraduate programs here at Bastyr are unique. We are not like a typical 4-year institution. So our programs are unique and they're what we call 2-year undergraduate completion programs. So what that means is all of our students are transfer students, and before starting at Bastyr, you must complete 90 quarter credits or 60 semester credits if you're familiar with the semester system before entering the program. So all of our students are transfer students. And additionally, all of our programs are run as a cohort. So we only do a once-a-year start each fall. But you will go through the program, the full 2-year program, with the same group of students. And so I wanted to briefly mention a program we have with Cascadia College in Bothell. This is for those of you who live in Washington. It's called the Cascadia Blended Enrollment Program. It's really designed for students who have little or no undergraduate coursework, and it's a way to fast track your time at Bastyr. It's still a 4-year program. But instead of doing, first 2 years at a community college and then 2 years at Bastyr, if you do the Cascadia blended program, you will start in the first year only taking classes at Cascadia. And then in the second and third years, you actually take classes at both campuses, Cascadia and Bastyr University. So you'll have access to both campuses, access to all amenities and services, and you get to start at Bastyr a year early than our other students do. And then in your 4th year, you will take all of your classes at Bastyr. So with this, you get both an associate's degree at Cascadia and a bachelor's at Bastyr University. And one of the biggest benefits of this program is that you get to really streamline your coursework. So you start early on with an advisor at Cascadia, and you're only going to be taking classes that are essential to the program. So you'll avoid spending time and money on classes that won't be considered for Bastyr and any non-essential classes. So if you have any questions about that, contact one of us admissions advisors, and we can put you in touch with the advisor at Cascadia. So for the prerequisites, we don't have the specific prerequisites to the Herbal Sciences program listed here. However, you can find those pretty easily on our website on the Herbal Sciences page. But again, as I mentioned, in order to start the Herbal Sciences program, you do need 90 quarter credits. Within that, there is a certain set of what we call basic proficiency and science requirements that you'll have to complete. That includes biology, 2 chemistry classes, botany class, etc. And then a certain set of general education requirements. And those fall into different categories such as natural sciences, social sciences, and arts and humanities. We really want to make sure and point out that those science courses are important. They are there to prep you for this program at Bastyr. And so we really, you want to make sure that you're getting at least a C or higher in those courses. We wouldn't accept anything lower than that. And so another thing I wanted to talk about is for those general education courses, again, many of you will be taking those at a community college, but we do have an option to complete some of those general education courses online, and that's through a company called ACE, or its Alternative Credit Project. So there is a link here on this slide, and again, this will be sent to you. You can learn more about Alternative Credit Project on our website, but you can also contact an admissions advisor. And really through all of this, it's never too early to plan, and it's never too early to contact an advisor. That's why we are here to help. So we are here to help you determine if you've already taken some courses, we can help you determine what you still have left to complete, or if you're just starting from scratch, we can kind of help you get that process going. So, please make sure to plan. Again, like I said, it's never too early. We do have another resource I wanted to point out on our website. That is our prerequisite equivalency transfer guides. So what this is as I mentioned, we have a specific set of science courses and basic proficiency courses that you are required to take before starting at Bastyr. So we have a guide that lists community colleges in both Washington and California. And it gives you the list of the course codes that you need by school. So it's really helpful if you're going to be taking classes either in Washington or California. You can search your community college, and then it tells you the course codes that you need to take. So you can check that out on our website using that link. And of course, if you don't know, or if you are taking classes outside of Washington or California, then you would just contact your admissions advisor, and they would help you determine what courses to take depending on the school that you'll be attending. So once you do have a good understanding of the prerequisites you need to take, that's the first step. You need to figure out what you still have left to complete and how long you have left to complete them. At that point, then you can begin planning to apply to the program. So as I mentioned before, we are a cohort-based school, so we do once a year start each fall. So the application deadline, the priority deadline, is February 1st of the year that you plan to apply. We do accept applications on a rolling basis after February 1st, so it's not a hard deadline. However, completing your application by that deadline gives you time to plan, especially if you still have prerequisites you have left to complete, gives you time to plan if you're going to be moving to Washington, and also gives you priority for first-year scholarships. The application for the program, for all of our programs at Bastyr, are online as well, so you would apply electronically. So requirements for application, the first is it is a $60 application fee. However, if you have a chance to come to campus, whether it's for an event, an open house, a campus tour, or an in-person advising appointment, we will actually waive that application fee. So really what this is we really encourage everyone to come visit the school before you apply. And if you do, then you won't have to pay that $60 application fee. Additionally, we will require a personal statement, which I'll go over a little bit on the next slide. We'll ask for your resume. We need official transcripts from every higher education institution you've attended in the past. So if you've been to multiple community colleges, or universities, we will need an official transcript from each. Keep in mind, we are not going to be transferring in any high school credits, so we do not need your high school transcript. Now, the prerequisite completion plan. What that means is you can actually apply to the program before your prerequisites are complete. They just need to be completed by the start of the program in the fall. So you can apply in February by the February 1st deadline, but still be taking classes throughout the spring and summer if you need to. So if that's the case, you will have to list on your application the course code, the course name, the institution, and when you are going to complete that class. So we know that you have a plan to complete your prerequisites prior to the start of the program. And lastly, we do not require letters of recommendation for our undergraduate programs here at Bastyr. So a little bit more detail about the personal statement. We do get a lot of questions about this. So we will have guiding questions for you on the online application. There's about 3 or 4 narrative questions. And what we'd like you to do is answer those in essay format. We are looking for about 1,000 to 2,000 words. We wouldn't accept a couple sentences or even a couple paragraphs. We are looking again for 1,000 to 2,000 words. And what we'll be looking for is it complete and is it well written? Do you understand the field for which you're applying? And is what you're writing, is that content appropriate for the application? We do always suggest that you have someone you trust, family member or friend, look over your personal statement before you submit it, because it is a big part of the application. So another question we get a lot is, okay, how do I be competitive for this program? Well, I'm here to say that we do not compare our applicants here at Bastyr. So we are only going to be taking a look at your application and your application only. We take a holistic view and look at you as an individual and don't compare you to another applicant. So here are the things that we are going to be looking at when you apply. Most importantly, we'll be looking at your college level grades. So we do have a cumulative GPA requirement of a 2.5, but keep in mind the average GPA of our students who come in is actually about a 3.4. Another thing we'll be looking at is your grades for your basic proficiency and science requirements. So especially those chemistry grades, biology grades, and for this program, your botany grade. As I mentioned earlier, we would only accept a grade of C or higher. So you need to make sure you are doing well in those classes. And then we will also take a look at your personal statement. So timing, so how long does it take to process your application? So in order for us to even start the review of your application when you apply, is we need all of those documents. So we need your resume, all of your official transcripts, your personal statement, etc. Once we have everything, it only takes about 2 to 3 weeks to hear from us. However, if you have, if we have some outstanding questions, maybe you haven't completed your prerequisite plan, we don't know how you're going to complete a course, that could take a little bit longer. But typically, once we have all your documents, you should hear of a decision within about 2 to 3 weeks. If you apply to the program and you have a lot of prerequisites outstanding, we may place a hold on your application until you complete some more coursework. Again, this is really rare, but if you are applying and you have a lot left to complete, we may wait to make a decision until you've completed some coursework until we can see more grades from you. So lastly, it is also very important that if you do have outstanding prereqs, once you complete those, keep sending us the official transcripts as you complete coursework, because we do need those official transcripts for auditing purposes, and we will need all of your official transcripts before you start the program at Bastyr. Okay, so if you want to know more, that's me on the left. Again, I'm one of the admissions undergraduate advisors here. The other undergraduate advisor on the right is Courtney Kwong. So the two of us work together with our undergraduate students. If you can see below, our email addresses are there, so feel free to email us at any time. But we do split working with students based on last names. So I work with students with last names A through M, and Courtney works with those N through Z. The best thing to do, like I said, is contact us whenever you have questions, and contact us early. So we do phone advising appointments, and we also do office advising appointments. So the best way to set up an appointment with one of us is to call our admissions office. So the number is listed there. So give them a call and they will find a time that works best for both you and the advisor. If you just have a couple quick questions, again, you can always just email us directly as well. So we are getting short on time here, and we did get some great questions. So I wanted to get started with our question portion of the webinar. Keep in mind, we probably, again, because we're running short on time, we're probably not going to get to all of them. So if I didn't get to yours, I'll make sure to contact you afterwards and get your question answered. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the first questions we got, and Sheila, I'll send this over to you, is do you need to know Latin because some of the plant names are in Latin?
That's a good question. You don't need to know Latin coming in. We teach you the Latin names. You just have to memorize them. We also give you a few tips along the way because there's a kind of, when Linnaeus kind of named the plants, there was a method to the madness. So we'll give you some Latin, basically teach you some of the Latin so that you kind of understand. For example, some plants have cardiaca in the name, and cardiaca means heart. And so every time you see that from then on, you'll be like, oh, that plant is for something to do with the heart. So it's not difficult to kind of grasp the basics of those specific to plant naming. And it actually is quite helpful. And you don't have to know anything about Latin coming in.
Okay, thank you. And then we had a follow-up question when you were talking about in senior year where students, I believe it's spring quarter, they take 4 weeks off for kind of practicum. Can you go into a little bit more detail about what types of places those students can go?
It's wide open. We do have the Practicum coordinator, who's Crystal Hamby. She has a list of all the Practicum sponsors, if you will, that have agreed to accept students, but it's not limited to that. So if, let's say, a student has a relationship with an herbalist in Alabama, and they that herbalist there is willing to take them on for a practicum period. So let's say the student wants to spend a couple weeks with that herbalist, we can make that happen. Basically, we just have paperwork basically that will help the practicum supervisor to kind of know what's expected of them and what paperwork we need on the experience and what the student needs to do in terms of time commitment and learning objectives. We can establish individually learning objectives for what that student wants to get out of the practicum experience. So it's wide open, so you can select things, like I said, on the list or off the list, as long as we can kind of make that relationship and get approval on all sides, and which is not difficult. But you can go anywhere from whatever interests you, growing, clinical settings, research settings, industry settings, whatever calls to you. And it's the goal of the practicum is to kind of dabble in that kind of career idea that you had in mind for yourself, to make sure that it works for you, you do like it, and also give you kind of some on-the-job training, and often can lead to a job after graduation.
Okay, thank you. Next question is a kind of a twofold question about the study abroad. The first part is, how are those study abroad trips funded? Is it out of pocket, financial aid? And do those are those study abroad trips, do they earn credits for those?
Okay, so those study abroad classes are all what we call intensive classes, meaning they're all done within usually a 2-week or less period of time. They are all for credit, which means that you qualify for financial aid. If those credits, the presumption is you'd be using them towards your field credits. So let's say you're doing a 3-credit class to Italy, then 3 credits count for your field classes. You needed 4 total, so that makes up most of them. And you would go for, let's say, I think it's like 10 to 14 days max. And then financial aid then covers potentially covers the cost of the class, so the tuition. It covers the fee for the class, so it takes that into account when they're doing your financial aid award. It says, oh, you're going to need this much extra for your award, so they count that towards your total need. And then what it doesn't cover is usually airfare. So travel or airfare. If it's a local class, we try to do carpooling or rental vans. The travel during the class is always covered. So like once you get there, we take it from there. I think I
Okay.
got all the parts.
Yeah, thank you. And you did kind of mention this in the section about kind of career paths, but one of the questions here is, are there any alumni that have become pharmacognists?
Yes, we have a handful that come to mind immediately that are pharmacognosist either in the research field or on their way towards the PhD kind of academic pharmacognosist level. And we it's a few committed individuals that want to go that full route, but many are, you're already trained in pharmacognosy in the program, so many are acting as pharmacognostists in the industry immediately after graduation. That is possible, but there are a handful that go into the full PhD research academic path.
Okay, great. And then two questions I just wanted to briefly respond to. One was asking where can you find the advisor's email? And of course, that's up right now on the slide. There's two of us undergraduate admissions advisors, both myself and Courtney Kwong, so our emails are listed right below. The second question is, where can I find a list of those electives? And those can be found in multiple places. If you go to the Herbal Sciences page on the website and look for the curriculum, you can find those on the curriculum sheet. You can also go to our academic catalog and search our academic catalog for the Herbal Sciences program and find the list of electives there. And you can also learn a little bit more about each of those classes as well. So we are getting short on time. We'll probably have time for about one more question. Again, thank you to those of you who submitted your questions. Some of you submitted multiple questions, so anything we didn't get to, I'll make sure to email you. One of the last questions is, are classes in the program, are they 8 hours a day and are they 5 days a week?
No, there are days that will be all day long, and there are days that you won't have class. It's not the same every quarter, so there's a little bit of, one quarter might have a half day of class, 2 days a week, and most of the day, the rest of the days, other quarters will have a full day off. Our program coordinator, Chrissy Atkins, does her best to give kind of a concise schedule if it'll work, depending on how busy our classrooms are.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll just add to that is that schedule does change every quarter. And here at Bastyr, you are actually pre-registered for all of your classes. So the academic advisors will register you for your classes ahead of time, so you won't have to stay up at 5 in the morning trying to get into a class, which is really nice. And you'll know your schedule ahead of time. And then if you need to make any changes or add electives, at that point you would work with your academic advisor to do that. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today. Like I said, those of you who had a couple more questions, I will contact you after the webinar, get those answered. Sheila, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we wrap up today?
No other information, just everyone's welcome to contact me if you have questions I can help answer. I'd be happy to help.
Okay, wonderful. Well, great. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And again, if you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.